Hey guys, Zach Empire here. I wanted to talk to you about the You're a Jerk comic and why it's not going to be published, and some of the reasons I decided not to publish it, and kind of why I consider the comic like a failure, and then also some of the things I consider to be very successful and very helpful about the comic. So I'll explain that. So if you know my stuff at all, if you're watching this video, you've read this comic, most likely. And this is a comic I really like a lot. I feel like it's one of the better comics that I've done. I like the size, of it. I like that I use the red paper. I just think it's really well drawn and it's real funny. And I think that story was like a big leap forward for me because it was kind of one of the longest stories I've done. And in doing it, I was like, I really want to do humorous adventure stories. Those are the stories that are fun to draw. Just characters in like a weird scenario, and it's funny. So one thing is, let me turn this light on. Before I did that comic, I was drawing on really large paper. This is for the cover for Ugly People 3. And when I decided to do Camp Trails, I switched to 11 by 17. Yeah, 11 by 17 paper, which I thought was really good. Like, it was just a good size, and it was a good size I was comfortable in working in. These are the originals. And I liked the style in this a lot. It just feels very comfortable. Like, just the way I was drawing, with, like, the shadows. I mean, that's not really how you would draw. I'm sure the shadows are all wrong. I just kind of put black on there, but I just liked certain things. If we go through it, I'll show you. Like, I like these black silhouette panels, and I guess I didn't really do it on this page yet, or this page. You can see here too something kind of, I started doing like circles for hands a little bit when they're really far away, which I found was really easy. There's like another like black silhouetted person. Here's kind of something I started doing where the leg behind them is totally in black, which is something I liked quite a bit and I use now. This all kind of came from this comic, and just, I realized too that I like having all these panels on the page, just like at least like 7 panels per page. Another thing with this comic too is I started using the B6 nib, which I liked quite a bit. I was still using a micron to ink or to do the lettering and to do some of the panel borders. But this is just a comic I like quite a bit. So then I started to do my next comic, which is You're a Jerk. And this is the original artwork for You're a Jerk. This is the comic that is not going to be published. When I started doing it, I kind of the same thing. I just wanted to do like a humorous adventure story. I talked about this in another video. Sort of the original inspiration was to do a video, or not a video, but a comic about a guy who ends up dating a porn star and ends up that, like, sexually he can't compete with her whatsoever because she's just like used to just, like 4 girls giving one guy a blowjob and double penetration and all kinds of crazy shit that I've never seen on the internet. I never looked any of that stuff up, just so we're clear. But it kind of turned into this story where the comic book issue Steelhawk 187 goes and gets in a fight with Jerkface, and she runs away, and this pimp mistakes her for a hooker, and he thinks he owns her, and then Jerkface and this to-do list and the comic book issue 187 of Steelhawk, they have to fight the pimp and the Cyclops hooker, and it's kind of funny, but you're not going to get to read it. So originally I was going to do it as the same size as this, but then I got blue line paper And I was like, oh, I'll do it at this size. So I'm, because it was much easier because I don't have to rule out the panels, and I decided, well, I'll just do 6 panels a page on every page. And I'll just make it easier. And that's kind of what I did. And when I originally did this, I did not have all of these lines everywhere, like all the cross hatching, all the lines in the background. It was a little bit closer. This is a page that I redrew because I had to make it smaller. I mean, you can see here, I didn't have all these lines and everything. See, here's the redrawn page. You can see I put in all these crosshatch lines and just lines everywhere. And this was much more simple. And the reason it was much more simple was just because I was reading stuff at the time that I liked, and I kind of went against my own style to try to make it more simple. So, for instance, one of the cartoonists I've really been getting into is Jason. I love Jason's work. I'm not going to show you too much because I don't know if I'll get in trouble, but he just has a real simple style. His stuff is really great. Another person is Box Brown, who everybody knows. I like his style a lot too. It's just real simple, and I kind of liked that. And just the way he draws, like the faces and stuff. Here's another one that's just real simple art, but I like it. And then this guy, this is Greg Stump and David Lasky, but he's also really simple, and I liked that a lot. So I wanted to have something that was a little bit more simple because, like an idiot, I'm like, oh, well, the style is simpler and the pages are smaller, it'll be easy to draw. But it turned out that it was actually harder for me to draw, even though it was only like a little bit smaller than the size of Camp Trails. It was actually harder for me to fit all the words on the page that I wanted to get in there, because I like Silver Age comics, and they talked a lot. If you read like the Romita Lee Spider-Man comics, they're talking a lot. So I had about 15 pages or so done in this comic, and I'm kind of like, if I like it or not. And then other influences started coming in, so I started thinking about Crumb, and you can see Crumb just puts all kinds of lines into his work. And I was looking at, Noah Van Sciver. I like his work too, and he just has like these, he uses a lot of texture, and then I was looking at Pat Alicio, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce her name, and he just has a shit ton of lines. And so then I went back through the art and I added all these lines because, I'm like, oh, I want to put all these lines on the page too. And so it was just these two completely different styles, which are not my style, meeting, and it just ruined the comic. I am not happy with the art on the comic at all. It's also a comic too where I think I was trying to be more clever than I was trying to be entertaining, and it's not a comic that's personal at all. It's almost just like a product comic, like, oh, well, here's the next funny comic I did, and it sucks. So even though I drew the whole thing, this is the comic here, I'm not going to publish it because I don't like it at all. I thought about publishing it as a web comic, but like I'm not happy with it, and to put something out there with my name on it that I'm just like not more satisfied than I am dissatisfied just seems stupid. So I'm not going to be publishing it. And my next comic, which I'm almost done with, which is called Lone Wolf, I kind of did away with a lot of that stuff, and I kind of met in the middle a little bit. Here's a page from Lone Wolf. The style is sort of simple, but I'm still getting, all those lines in there. You can see I can't draw cars. There's Big Daddy Bacon and stuff, and just still more panels, still lots of words. And this is all done with a nib too. The panel borders and the lettering. This is kind of one of the first times I've done everything with like just a nib, except for obviously the big black areas I did with a brush, because to do that with a nib would just take forever. So that's kind of the reason why I think the comic was a success, is that I learned to go with my own style, trust my instincts on style, you know, and to just stop letting like all these outside influences try to like force their way onto the page, and just be like, I like this guy's art, I don't draw like him. You know, as simple as that. I also, I used like a lot of different tools to make those pages, and I'm just like, this is just too frustrating. I want to use one tool and get it done, you know. So anyway, that's my long rambling story of that comic. So sorry if you were looking forward to it. Later.